Yeah. What is up, my people? Listen, man, listen. This is crazy. This is crazy. This NBA draft discourse, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, who should the Sixers draft? Should they trade up? Should they trade down? What about this trade? What about that trade? It's crazy. And there's still over a month until the NBA draft. It is wild. I am glued to Twitter. I talk about it every day, all day. It's an absolute sickness, man. And sometimes I ask myself, I'm like, am I really going to talk about this basketball team every day for the entire offseason? Yeah. Yes, I am. And here you are. We are Sicko Nation. We can't help it. I posted the clip about the would you trade for Jaylen Brown idea. I just like to say things, man. I don't know. I'm a professional yapper, I guess. Some people get so mad. They're like, why are you wasting time talking about a fake trade that's never gonna... I don't know, dude. Because I'm bored and it's fun. I really don't know, but I promise you, it's not that deep. Hey, shout out to everybody in here. Thanks for being here. 150 people. We have a report from an NBA insider. Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing for the rest of the offseason. A report from an NBA insider who is at the draft combine. So there's some credibility there. He works for The Athletic. There's some credibility there. And we're going to talk about what he said, why he said it. Okay, this is brought to you by Game Time Ticket App. Use code CLNS for $20 off your ticket purchases on Game Time. This is brought to you by Mando, full body deodorant with 72-hour protection. Use code SICKOS, SICKOS, for $5 off your starter kit at shopmando.com. Thank you for the support every day. I read every single super chat on the show. Thank you for the support. Every single super chat means the world to me. You can also donate on Cash App at Eastwood DJ. So there's the QR code for that. Also, if you use Cash App and you want to donate to the show, thank you all again for the support every single day. And you can call the show 951-981-7683 if you got something to say. Let's get into it, man. I didn't bring it up. Producer, you're fired. Where's it at? Here we go. So it's posted by NBA Central. And here's what happens on Twitter. Somebody says something, somebody of notoriety says something, or somebody with some credibility says something, and then the internet runs with it, and it's posted all over the place. For those of you that aren't used to this yet, if Twitter and this style of media is new to you, I need you to know you have to take everything with a grain of salt, man. You can just see a report, and for some reason, they put a picture of Daryl Morey, and they write this, and so, people are like, oh my God, what an idiot. It does not say that Daryl Morey said this. Actually, Daryl Morey said on a podcast just 2 days ago that they plan on using the draft pick to draft a player. And Nick Nurse even said, we kind of know who the top two players are. We like the player that we think is going to fall to. I mean, they literally alluded to the 76ers drafting Ace Bailey and not having any intention of trading the pick. But Sam Vecenie of The Athletic writes that the Sixers are reportedly open to trade offers for the number 3 overall pick. So what does open to trade offers mean? That just means I'll listen. I'll take a listen to what you want to say. It really doesn't mean Daryl Morey is planning on trading the pick. Unless it was something crazy, which, again, we don't know what Daryl Morey's got. I know that, too. We don't trust Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey is a liar, according to James Harden and Chris Paul and Patrick Beverley and some others. And Daryl Morey is still I feel like in win now mode, he's interested in this upcoming season being a giant success to save his ass. So there is that level of nervousness. You know what I'm saying? Where Daryl Morey doesn't seem like he's in rebuild mode. Daryl Morey seems like he believes that last year we just had a bunch of fluke injuries and this upcoming season can be a success and that'll save his job and his reputation and everything. So there is a level of nervousness that if it was a player who's in his prime, who Daryl Morey feels like could help us win now, a la a Giannis Antetokounmpo or a Kevin Durant or somebody like that, he could pull the trigger. But it would have to be a player that puts you over the top, not just a piece that you put alongside an if healthy Joel Embiid and an on paper Paul George. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so the first thing I do when I see something like this is I say, who wrote it, why did they write it, and what did they actually say? Because everybody's going to paraphrase and everybody's going to type the quotes that they think is going to get the most engagement. So we go to Sam Vecini, and he's a senior writer at The Athletic on the NBA draft. He is at the NBA Combine right now, and here's his tweet to the article where he talked about what he thinks the 76ers will do at number 3. And here is the article. Yes, I paid $2 to read this. You're welcome. Thank you for all the support. He talked about Dylan Harper. He talked about, will the Spurs trade or keep the number 2 pick? What will the Spurs do? You know, because if the Spurs trade the number 2 pick, then we're having a different conversation, because then we're talking about how does Dylan Harper fit alongside, Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. And I think Dylan Harper is a more NBA ready product, whereas Ace Bailey is more of a development player. Dylan Harper, you would probably be more interested in playing heavy minutes right off the bat, whereas Ace Bailey, you'd be more comfortable, bringing him off the bench, seeing what he has as a rookie, letting him take it easy for 2 or 3 years, honestly, as an 18-year-old. We got to remember how much time these players take to develop in the NBA. These kids are 18. Somebody said Ace Bailey's ceiling is Amen Thompson, and I was like, well, Amen Thompson is 22 and is not a finished product himself. How are we comparing a player to other players who are not even at their ceiling? You know what I'm saying? We got to remember how much time is invested in a player's development when they are drafted. Tyrese Maxey turned 24 years old, and he's still developing. He's still going to get a lot better every year. Look at Donovan Mitchell. He was the 9th pick in the draft. He was super athletic. Nobody thought Donovan Mitchell was going to be dropping 48 points in playoff games, and it took him until he was 28 years old to be doing that. So that's just that's what it is, man. That's what it is. Anyway, let's get to the part of the article where he talked about the Sixers, the Bucks' potential lottery winner if they decide to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo. He does say, on the Giannis stuff, he does say that the Bucks right now are the read on the Bucks from the rest of the league right now is that they hope to keep Antetokounmpo. I mean, obviously you hope to keep Antetokounmpo, and Giannis hasn't said anything out loud yet about like, hey, do I really have to say this? I don't want to play the rest of my career here. We'll see what happens with that, but the Bucks have not like publicly stated, we're trading Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's just something that everybody seems to be assuming, which I think is a valid assumption with how the Milwaukee Bucks past year or two went and how their playoffs went this past year with the Damian Lillard injury, and then hiring Doc Rivers to put the nail in your own coffin. I wouldn't want to stay there either. Here's what he said. Well, he talked about the Sixers within the Giannis Antetokounmpo conversation, it looks like. Right here, even the Philadelphia 76ers getting the number 3 pick was a minor win for the Bucks, as Daryl Morey is seen as league-wide. Daryl Morey, okay, can I read today? Daryl Morey is seen league-wide as one of the executives most likely to try to get creative and swing a star trade. That's what scares me, because It is Daryl Morey. Remember when the rumors came out about Paul George being available and the Clippers not wanting to pay him a max contract? We said right here on this show, if the Clippers don't pay Paul George, whether we like it or not, Daryl Morey is 100% going to do it. It was easy to predict, and he 100% did it, and the first year was a disaster, and it might be the worst contract ever signed in the history of contracts besides Joel Embiid's extension and in the next couple of years, Jaylen Brown. But it it was predicted. This is the stuff that he does. So we do have to have a level of nervousness here, man. If it's for Giannis, it is what it is. I would love to see Ace Bailey develop over the next 5-6 years. But if you get Giannis and you put him next to Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain and Quentin Grimes and Adem Bona and Justin Edwards and Kelly Oubre, and that's a team that has a shot. I wouldn't like it because I want to see one of these young kids turn into something, but it would put us back in the conversation, and Daryl Morey is interested in being back in the conversation, probably more than he's interested in anything else. You could argue that none of these teams will bid what it takes to pull Giannis out of Milwaukee, but that feels extremely unlikely. Again, Giannis isn't 25. I don't think Giannis has the pool that Luka Doncic should have had if there was not a trade set up by the NBA, pretty obviously, that was repaid by giving them Cooper Flag. But anyway, let's get to... Yo, Eastwood, all you do is ramble, bro. Get to the point. Let's get to the Sixers part of the article. It's funny. I set up like 4 different things I want to talk about, and I can hardly even get through the first thing without rambling for an hour and a half. RJ, what up? Shout out to the members of the channel. Sicko Nation is in the building. For Giannis, ship out Embiid and PG. You can't ship out Embiid and PG. Nobody wants them. Nobody wants. Well, if you could... Giannis is a max contract star, so you could probably ship out one of those players as a... I mean, they're not even expiring contracts. They're horrible contracts. But if the Bucks want to get picks in return and take the next couple of years to rebuild, then they would, take on... They would maybe take on Paul George contract. But, I don't think Daryl Morey's going to trade him anyway. Anyway... 17 minutes into the show, we're going to get to the point. Here we go. Philadelphia is expected to be aggressive in how it looks to utilize its luck in winning the number 3 pick. The East has never looked more wide open for the taking, with the Bucks at a crossroads, the Cavaliers continuing playoff struggles, and Tatum's Achilles tear. That is true coming up on this season, man. There's not, the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers were the juggernauts. The Boston Celtics shot themselves out of a series by being arrogant. The Cleveland Cavaliers kind of did the same thing. Taking game 2 off. Oh, Garland has a toe sprain. We're going to sit a couple guys out for game 2. Don't worry, we're fine. We'll get them all back and we'll win the next 4 games in a row. And the Indiana Pacers said, every game matters. The fact that Cleveland dominated the whole regular season and fell like that in the playoffs is unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, there's no real juggernaut in the East. So that could be another driving force for Daryl Morey to want to make a move to win now, because he doesn't see that much competition. What do we need to be a contender to save my reputation? We don't need to be the Boston Celtics anymore. They lost. Tatum's not going to be there next year. They're probably going to make some major roster changes because of the salary cap. We don't need to build a juggernaut anymore to be in contention. So he could be looking at, I just need to get this to put me there. And I need Joel Embiid to be healthy. And I don't know what God Daryl Morey prays to, but I hope he's praying every day. If Joel can use this summer to get his knee right, the Sixers could easily find themselves right back in the hunt in the East if things break right. It's expected that the Sixers will listen. See, this is just like, it's expected. What does that mean? But I think he's right. I think they will listen to offers. Even though Daryl Morey said on a podcast, we are going to take the pick, or he said we're planning on using the pick to draft that player. That's what he said on multiple podcasts now and on a radio interview. But that doesn't mean he's not going to listen to offers. And that doesn't mean he's not going to pull the trigger, because he is Daryl Morey. So it is expected that the Sixers will listen to offers for number 3. I think I agree with that. But it's unclear who they would take if it stays. I don't think it's unclear. I think it's pretty clearly Ace Bailey. I know people every day now are going to try to make an argument for VJ Edgecombe or Trey Johnson. I think it's pretty clearly Ace Bailey. I think the 3 players at the top of the draft have the highest upside out of the draft. And if you have a chance to get one of those 3 players, if there's no win now move and you have a chance to get one of those 3 players, you take one of those 3 players. Rutgers Bailey has been seen as the biggest upside swing, and he fills a theoretical position of need for Philly as a big wing, but he is also viewed as more of a project by scouts and executives. And this is a Sixers front office that likely needs to win next year to keep its job. He should have put in this article, Hoops Reference on Twitter thinks he sucks. And Hoops Reference is a credible source, and all NBA scouts should listen to Hoops Reference about Ace Bailey, because he makes 10-minute scripted YouTube videos and he knows everything there is to know. I've also gotten a wider sense of appreciation from NBA front offices for Edgecombe than Bailey. That's interesting that he said that. I've gotten a wider sense of appreciation from NBA front offices for Edgecombe over Bailey. I don't really know what that means. A wider sense of appreciation. I don't really know what that means. This Sixers front office likely needs to win next year to keep its job. See, that's the part, bro. That's the part, man. That's the part that scares me. Is this Sixers front office. If they cleaned house at the end of last season, we would definitely know they would be drafting at number 3. If they cleaned house, if they fired Daryl Morey, if they fired Nick Nurse, don't even forget, Daryl Morey's the kind of guy that wants to win now. He's never tanked. He's never been in a rebuild. Nick Nurse is not a development coach. Won't play to young guys because he has this win now mentality as I won a championship in Toronto in 2019. I'm the smartest guy in the room. I need veterans. He's the white Doc Rivers. So you have a GM and a coach who are not in a position to rebuild or develop. If they would have cleaned house, I would feel much more safe about the fact that I think they're going to take a player at number 3 and not trade the pick away. But when you look at, Sixers front office likely needs to win next year to keep their jobs. Morey and company also typically care about how players perform in pre-draft analytic models. Morey and company also typically care about how players perform in pre-draft analytic models. I wonder if Morey's asking his AI assistants about Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey's performance in those is not particularly strong because of his inefficiency, unwillingness to pass, and starkly negative assist to turnover rate. See, I don't care about any of that. Me personally, I don't care about that. I don't think Daryl Morey cares about that anyway. You don't look at an 18-year-old player and be like, this is what the people are doing. This is what the shot analytics nerds are doing on Twitter. They're pulling out like Ace Bailey's shot tendency inside 17 feet with only 16 seconds on the clock and an open man on each corner is 47%. It's crazy, bro. What are we talking about? I think you take the player for his size, his ability, and what you think he can become. You don't really look at what he did at Rutgers at 18 years old at all. Why would that matter? You know what I'm saying? What the hell did Kawhi Leonard do at Fresno State? Somebody tell me. Somebody tell me what Kawhi Leonard did at Fresno State. Nobody knows. What was Kawhi Leonard's 2-point shot tendency at Fresno State? You see what I'm saying? That leads into how the next group of prospects fits on this roster. Edgecombe is the smallest player who I have rated in my top 15. Does he work for a team that has Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain in addition to Quentin Grimes? No, because he's a project. Whatever the Sixers roster would look like 5 years from now, you would say, does VJ Edgecombe fit into that? VJ Edgecombe is a crazy athlete. A lot of, it would be fun watching him damn near dunk from the free throw line, but I don't know. You can't tell much else about him. Trey Johnson's shooting would certainly fit with Maxey, Embiid, and George, but his defensive concerns are real on the roster that could already be quite small in the backcourt. What team plays 18-year-olds heavy minutes, man? Everybody's looking at these players like, what are they going to bring to the team right away? I don't know, and I don't think it matters. Kneppel is maybe the easiest fit of the group, but he's perceived by many scouts to not have an immense amount of upside. We could talk about Kneppel the same way we talked about, what was the dude's name in the draft last year that went to the Lakers right after Jared McCain? The white boy wing shooter who didn't play a single minute in the playoffs. You know what I mean? I just think, what are we talking about with these players? Like, what are they going to bring to the team right away? They're 18 years old, bro. Probably nothing. What pick would garner a possible trade of Jared McCain? None. I'm not trading Jared McCain for anything. You can't say you're trying to get younger and then trade the pick for another guy that won't fit with Embiid. Yeah, Dalton Connect. Thank you guys for that. Internet nerds don't have eyes. Go watch him play. Touch some grass. The obsession over advanced analytics is insane. It really is. And talking about an 18-year-old's defensive concerns, like it is what it is. But yeah, there's the article. I guess I agree that Daryl Morey will listen to offers. But unless it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, I don't see him pulling the trigger. I don't see him pulling the trigger even for Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant's 35 years old. But at the same time, if he thinks, hey, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Paul George, all these guys are old, they only have a couple years left, maybe I trade the pick in a Kevin Durant package, to put him with these guys and try to, I don't know, dude. Well, you would have to trade PG for Kevin Durant anyway, wouldn't you? You would have to trade Paul George in that trade anyway. I don't know. I just don't. I would love to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to say. I don't see a trade like that happening, but it's Daryl Morey. Shizo Flex, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Thank you for the support. Sixers need to hit this draft out of the park. No trading for old stars. Pick and develop players. That's how young players become stars. You build them. That's what I would prefer. I would prefer the Sixers draft a player and develop him, especially when it's a player with the upside as high as Ace Bailey. But I am nervous. I am nervous that, especially with what he said in this article, the 76ers front office, they need to win to keep their jobs. That makes me nervous because it's true. That makes me nervous because it's true. But I agree. I would like for them to draft a player and develop him in this draft. We got a caller on the line. Ben is on the line. Let's take a caller, and then we're going to play a clip. We're going to play a clip about Ace Bailey before we get out of here. Yo, man, what's going on? You're on the show.
Yeah, what's up?
What's up, man?
I've been scrolling on Twitter, just reading what Sixers fans had to say about us getting the third pick.
Yeah.
And I just feel like everybody's upset or just pissed off about just random things. We had a terrible season last year. Going into the draft lottery, there was a good chance we weren't going to keep our pick. Not only did we keep our pick, we ended up moving up. We have the third pick now. Mm-hmm. This gives us so much options for us. We could draft Ace Bailey, who I love. I actually really want to draft Ace Bailey, but if they feel like Ace Bailey isn't good enough, they like VJ Edgecombe more, they can draft him. If they don't want to draft, if they want to trade, they can like you mentioned earlier, they could trade for like. I mean, you said you weren't a big fan of trading for KD, but if they want to trade like Paul George, the third pick for KD, I think that's fine. If they want to trade back, get like Cam Johnson and like the 8th pick for the 3rd pick and like I don't know, like Kelly Oubre, like I just feel like considering the season that we had and now we have so many options that like I don't know, I feel like people shouldn't be mad. Like this is a great thing that we got.
Yeah. Yo, bro, thank you so much for the call and thank you for the perspective. Shout out to Ben on the line, man. Yeah, dude. I completely agree. But here's what we need to remember about the internet and specifically Twitter. Twitter is not real. Twitter is if you want to learn to hate something, go read about that topic on Twitter every day. Twitter is, for some reason, the most negative app out of all of the apps. Twitter is the most negative. Dude, everything sucks on Twitter. And yeah, this is why, you know what I mean? Like, and I read Twitter every day, and I log out a lot because I'm like, this isn't real. I got to get out of here. And then I go outside. I go to my local neighborhood bars. I hang out with some friends. I talk to people about sports outside in the world. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, Sixers kept the pick, bro. That's amazing for them. They almost didn't keep the pick. Now they have all these options to do. And you're like, wow, people outside have a totally different perspective than the angry nerds that are stuck in the middle of this Twitter app. That's just seriously. But I totally agree with the way that you're looking at it. They could have had no pick at all. We wouldn't even be talking about this. We'd be down bad right now. We'd be like, bro, we're coming back with the same roster, and we have no hope, and there's nothing to look forward to. Now, you're absolutely right. They kept the pick. They can draft Ace Bailey. Maybe the Spurs take him and they draft Dylan Harper. Maybe they could trade down. Maybe they could trade for Kevin Durant. Maybe they could trade. But yeah, they now have a bunch of options that they wouldn't have had if they didn't keep the pick. You're absolutely right. People should be happy about it, but that's just the way Twitter is. Speaking of Twitter, Kevin O'Connor on a podcast, I came across this clip where Kevin O'Connor has an opinion on Ace Bailey, and then this other guy has an opinion on Ace Bailey, and they are drastically different. And here's what Kevin O'Connor says about Ace Bailey, and here's what his co-host says about him.
There's already kind of like a war among Sixers fans about Ace Bailey. You have Sixers fans that want Ace Bailey because of his upside, 6'9", 6'10", shot maker. Then you have a lot of Sixers fans who are like, he couldn't help Rutgers win. How is he going to help us win games here right now? With Ace Bailey, I think he's most likely to bust of the top 5 guys. That's my opinion.
What? First of all, bro, most likely to bust. Let's reword that, okay? Second of all, why? Can I get a reason why? What about? Why would you? And if that's such a negative outlook, why do people look at the top 5 prospects and say, who do I think is going to be a bust? Why would you even be thinking that negatively about 18-year-old players? All I know is I know who has the highest upside, and then in 5 to 8 years we'll know who the best player was and who didn't develop like we thought they possibly could. You can't just. I think he's
most likely to bust of the top 5 guys.
And dude, most likely to bust is just wild.
The top 5 guys.
Let's hear it again.
I think he's most likely to bust of the. I think he's most likely to bust of. I think he's most likely to bust of the top 5 guys. That's my opinion.
All right, that was immature.
Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely not.
No?
No, I mean, I love Ace Bailey. I live in New York, so I got a chance to spend a lot of time at Rutgers, both practices and games. Also watched him quite a bit. USA basketball in high school. I've had an opportunity to get to know him also off the court.
Oh, see, now we have a guy who's watched him play on the USA select team, watched him play in high school, got to know him off the court. So somebody who actually watched him and knows his personality and isn't just looking at some minute advanced statistic.
Basketball in high school, I've had an opportunity to get to know him also off the court, and I firmly believe that Ace Bailey is going to be a star in the NBA. And I went to watch him work out a couple of days ago. A guy with that kind of size and length and explosiveness and shot making prowess. He's 18 years old, doesn't turn 19 until August. He's I think people talk about the Rutgers stuff and all that, sure, you can knock him for that, but he's a very competitive guy. He wants to win. He's about the right things. I was just watching the interaction between him and Dylan Harper, like those guys obviously, like Dylan Harper wouldn't mess with a guy like that if he was like a loser, and Dylan, Ace Bailey, he's going to be big time, I think. And if I'm Philadelphia, I'm 100% drafting him third.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So one guy says Ace Bailey's going to be a bust. The other guy says, I'm 100% drafting Ace Bailey. I think he's going to be a star. One guy watched him play in high school, got to know him a little bit as a personality and his work ethic. I know one of these guys aligns with my opinion more than the other, but I'm going to agree with the guy that kind of gave a little bit of information on why he thinks what he thinks. I'm going to agree with that. Shizzo Flex, I'm not paying all that money it's going to cost to get into the new arena without young talent. KD is too old. You can't trust Embiid's health to bet on it. Yeah, if ownership's looking at it, that's a great point, dude. That is a great point. If ownership's looking at it, they're saying we're building a new arena in 2030 or 2031. It's going to be done. Joel Embiid's not going to be playing then. Paul George isn't going to be playing then. Tyrese Maxey's going to be 29. 28, 29. He's going to be in the prime of his career. And so from a longevity standpoint as an ownership group, if you want the most excitement, again, you don't have to win to make money as a sports owner. You have to sell hope. The fan base has to be excited enough to to buy the tickets and buy the jerseys and come to the show. You know what I mean? So if you want the most excitement around your team with a brand new arena, you probably should start building around Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain right now, and so that when they're 29 and 26 respectively, you have a team that people are excited to watch and is potentially a contender. And so if you're looking at 2030 and it's 2025 right now, you draft Ace Bailey. That's exactly what you do. So yeah, great point made there, man. Thank you for that, and thank you for the support on the super chat. Speaking of Ace Bailey's personality, man, there's two things here. There's a question that he answered about his bad shot selection that I want to play because it can be taken one of two ways. And there's a question that he answered about his weaknesses. And here's how he answered the questions.
Where does that confidence come from?
Workouts. Workouts. I work the shots a lot. I mean, the shots I work on and the workouts are the shots I do in the game. So what might be a bad shot to you, you don't work on it. I work on it. So that's how I look at it.
How'd you develop that routine?
I mean, work out consistently. I mean, same thing. 2 people guarding me in the workout, 3 people guarding me in the workout, creating space to get my shot off.
How'd you become a great shooter, and how long has that been, maybe your biggest strength?
I mean, shooting, I became a good shooter. Coach Hud, shout out to Coach Hud. I mean, working with him in high school, with my form and technique and all that. So he played a part in it, and then just put up a lot of reps with it.
Some people had a negative response to this because he sounds a little bit cocky, and there's a difference between confidence and cockiness. But I don't think this is cockiness, man. I think this is confidence. And also, like, people will talk about he doesn't pass the ball, right? He shoots over 2 or 3 guys. He doesn't pass the ball. These players go to college for 1 year. For 1 year. And what are they doing in that 1 year? Maybe they're not really concentrated so much on trying to get Rutgers to the national championship. He was a high school All-American. He played on the McDonald's All-American team. He played on the USA Select team. He's selling himself. He's selling himself as a product. He's trying to show everyone what his capabilities are so he can get drafted into the NBA. And yeah, maybe that equals some bad shots over double teams instead of passing the ball. But these over-analytical, he takes bad shots, people. would have hated Kobe Bryant. Just one example. Oh, don't draft me. Imagine if there's don't trade for Kobe Bryant. What was he drafted? 13th in the 97 draft and then was traded from the Charlotte Hornets to the Lakers or something like that. Don't trade for Kobe. He's only 18, but he takes bad shots and he doesn't pass the ball. Right? So a player like Ace Bailey, 5, 6, 7 years from now, if he becomes an NBA superstar and he becomes known as a guy that knocks down difficult shots, you can come right back to this interview where somebody asked him about it and he said, I put in the work. That might be a bad shot to you because you don't work on it. I work on it. I love that answer.
Workouts. I work the shots a lot. The shots I work on in the workouts are the shots I do in the game. So what might be a bad shot to you, you don't work on it. I work on it. So that's how I look at it.
I don't know. Some people are saying that's cockiness. I love the confidence, me personally. Here's one on ESPN where they asked him what his weaknesses are and what his strengths are, and here's what he said.
If you were giving your scouting report, what's your top 2 strengths, and what would be one weakness that you would write down on your own scouting report of yourself?
I ain't got no weaknesses. I got more than 2 strengths, big dog.
I ain't got no weaknesses, and I got more than 2 strengths, big dog. Now, you can be overly confident and you can hit a wall in the NBA, and it could go either way. I think Chet Holmgren kind of had this same overconfident personality when he was drafted, and Chet Holmgren's a great player and he's developing into a great player, and just because a player answers questions like this doesn't mean he's going to be like resistant to coaching or something like that. That's just something you'll find out with time. I'm sold just off the shit talk. He's welcome to Philly anytime. Exactly, bro. You know what I mean? You see him catch an alley-oop at Rutgers, dunk on somebody, and scream at him as they're laying on the floor. I love that. I need that. I need that aggression. I need that dog mentality. I need that player that wants to win that battle. I need that player that looks at it and says, I'm putting the ball in the hoop, and the only way you're going to stop me from doing it is if you get up there with me and block the shot. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen so many players back down from the fight on this team for years. I'm drafting that kid off of dog mentality alone, probably. You know what I'm saying? Let's take one more call before I get up out of here, man. Dan. We got Dan in West Philly. What's going on, Dan?
What's good, man?
What's up?
Giving a call in, man. Our fans are just like, our fans got to lighten up on our players, man. Because it's like, I get where they're coming from, but I don't think most of our fans that call in on your show, I don't think they weren't even walking around. They're probably in Pampers during a real Sixers process era where our team would just complete shit for 10 years.
It's probably true.
So, most of you young guys, I get it that you guys want to, pick up a rookie and you're expecting to change. It doesn't happen that fast. It never happened. I've only seen one rookie in my lifetime, which I'm pretty sure is probably yours is the same, that made a real difference their first year, which is LeBron James.
Yep.
There is no other prospects that's going to really make a difference on the team that first year. You look at Wemby, you look at the draft in the last 10, 15 years. None of them are going to make a real change until those first few years, man.
Absolute facts. So you're saying people shouldn't be so skeptical of an 18-year-old prospect?
Heck no.
Yeah.
Especially like when it's coming down to it, people are arguing, VJ Edgecombe over this or Ace. Like, listen, we're going to go with the best option that we can get. First and foremost, the NBA just gave us. They just literally just helped us out. Because without this draft pick, the next few years we would not have any picks.
Facts. You think they did that?
And the fact that
this is like the third year in a row that the 3 worst teams didn't end up with the first pick or something like that. You think the NBA's kind of, if they were going to rig it and they want to stop teams from tanking, and they're like, well, let's just consistently, the teams that shamelessly tank, let's make sure they don't get the number 1 pick in the draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're trying to stop it from tanking. I get it that teams are mad because their teams are ultimately tanking, but I mean, hey, it's big business. I'm sorry, Philly. Unfortunately, we were one of the teams that helped start off the NBA. Like,
Hey, we shamelessly tanked and they gave us number 3. Yeah, we got to be happy about it.
yeah, but we made it look good. You get what I'm saying? We made it look good. Quentin Grimes came out here and he balled out for us, and he made it look good, like we weren't tanking as much as every other team.
That's true. That is true. We did make it look good. You're right.
So,
We would slyly like pull him out in the fourth quarter. He'd have 35 points. We sit him in the fourth.
and see, other teams they weren't doing that. They weren't allowing their players, to go out and ball. And unfortunately, fortunately, like we allowed Quentin Grimes, and Quentin Grimes did an amazing job. He just made it look good. Also, what I was telling you, I was calling you, having a conversation with one of my friends the other day. I think that Quentin Grimes is a starter on one of those lower ranked teams. He's probably an all-star, maybe. If between Washington, Utah, Charlotte, if he goes to one of those teams, he is a all-star. But on the Sixers, once we get Embiid and Maxey back, it's going to be tough, man. So It's like, do we let him walk? Do we sign him?
That's what I mean. That's why I said you should trade him. You know what I mean? Because the Sixers can match any offer he gets. But first of all, I think he's going to get some offers that maybe they don't want to match, because you don't want to pay $20 million a year for a player that's not going to be your number 1, 2, or 3 option. I don't think. You know what I mean? With the way it's set up with Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey, if healthy, it doesn't seem like it makes sense for the Sixers to pay that much money for a guy coming off the bench. And then it's like, what role does Quentin Grimes want to play? The way that he played last season, he probably feels like, I deserve to be the guy somewhere,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he has value.
Mm-hmm.
And he has
Absolutely.
value. So I think I would trade him unless you get him for a deal, unless you keep him for a deal. But I don't see that happening. I would trade him.
Yeah, because once our team gets back, that argument that Grimes and what was the guy name from Cleveland they was arguing with, yeah, and he said his ass gonna be in the corner when Maxey comes back. That's exactly what's gonna happen, unfortunately.
Exactly, not because he doesn't have the skill, but because there's just one ball. Yeah, I agree, man.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thank you so much for calling, bro. Go ahead. Continue, man. Go ahead.
I know my last question is, if you had to, so for me personally, if we had to make a trade between Joel and Paul, unfortunately, as much as I love Joel, I would trade Joel depending on if we get Ace Bailey, because I would rather have Paul George mold Ace Bailey, because I feel like even though Joel's a great player, for the most part, most of the teammates, they say that he doesn't talk, he's very quiet, he stays for himself and all that stuff. So me personally, if I had to make a trade, I would let go of Embiid, but it's going to be hard because at that point we might have to let go of Jared McCain. But which one would you prefer to let go if we had to let go of one of them?
I don't think I'm trading Jared McCain for anything. At as young as he is, all the skills that I saw from him last year, I don't see a weakness in that kid, and he's just going to get better. I mean, I think honestly, Jared McCain showed like Steph Curry level of ability if he continues to develop. I was blown away by what he did in year 1. I'm not trading Jared McCain for anything. If somebody wants to take a gamble on Joel Embiid, I would probably. Yeah, that's probably what I would go with too. But then you'd be moving towards development and a rebuild, and I don't think it's going to happen anyway, because Daryl Morey's gonna try to save his job this upcoming season, so he's going to pray that Joel Embiid's healthy again. But I get what you're saying with the Paul George thing, where if Paul George can mentor Ace Bailey and turn him into what Paul George was back in Indiana and OKC. Because I don't think Paul George is trash. I think he's washed. You know what I mean? So I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, man. Hey, I appreciate the call, man.
All right, man. Sorry.
All right, take it easy.
Take it easy, bro.
Shout out to Dan in West Philly. Good call, man. Great callers. Hey, man, this has been another episode of Run It Back Philly, talking about Ace Bailey and the draft and the rumors and everything going on. It is straight sicko behavior, but we are going to be right here damn near every day talking about the draft until the draft happens. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for participating. Thank you for the super chats and the support. And I will see you next time.